Hey, what's up, YouTube? My name is Sid, and welcome to the first episode of my new series, Degree Review, where I talk to a fellow recent grad about their degree, what they learned in it, and how it's prepared them for their future. And for this first episode, I have my friend and future rocket scientist, Alexa Sullivan. Alexa, hey, how are you? Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
All right, well, first question, why did you choose to major in aerospace engineering?
I chose to major in aerospace engineering because I was always obsessed with space exploration, and originally I was going to go on track to do astrophysics, but I realized that a career in astrophysics is not really applied, and in high school I was really into using tools and making things with my hands and designing stuff instead of just trying to find patterns in data, so I ended up going into aerospace engineering.
What do you mean by, astrophysics being less applied? Because I know you minored in that.
Yeah, so a lot of times with astrophysics, you're not directly looking at things. I feel like there's a misconception of astronomers that people think that astronomers will use telescopes and themselves and actually use the tools to make observations themselves. But a lot of times what happens is that astronomers, to do their research, will end up just getting a file of data that they are to format and to try to understand from a telescope that's miles and miles away. So in some of my classes, I had to do projects like that where they just hand you raw data and you have to condition it and try and find patterns in it. And it's not as exciting as people think it is.
Speaking of classes, what were some of your favorite classes and professors that you took as a part of your major?
I would say one of my favorite classes I ever took was probably Introduction to Aerospace Engineering, which is the big scary class that everybody has to take. Yeah, it was very much a weed out class, sophomore year, and it was one of the hardest classes I ever took, but that professor ended up becoming my senior design advisor, Professor DeMauro. He's really cool, and his class really solidified. It's the first experience that you really get with actual flight vehicles instead of basic engineering knowledge. So I really enjoyed that class. Another class I really liked was multiphysics simulations. It was a very, very tough professor, but you kind of got to understand how you examine things that can't really be examined in real life. And I got to write a paper about the aerodynamics of baseball, which was really, really fun. Yeah. Not really. It was for simulation, so setting something up on a computer that would model real life. So I had to write a program of, okay, so this object in my code is the baseball, and the baseball has these forces on it, gravity, spin, and stuff like that. And it has applications. You really got to do anything you wanted with that project, as long as it's somehow related to making a simulation of it. And it was a really interesting way that us engineers got freedom to do what we wanted, because we don't usually have projects, we have exams.
What advice would you give to a freshman who wants to major in aerospace engineering?
I guess advice to any freshman or underclassmen would definitely be to join clubs as early as you can. It's never too late to start, but I found that I learned a lot of theoretical and analytical knowledge in my classes, and then all of the hands-on knowledge I learned about how things are done in the real world, I learned through my club, which was the Rutgers Rocket Propulsion Lab. There are some things that you just can't learn in a classroom, and you need to learn by doing them. And while Rutgers does try to give you that experience of labs and projects, nothing really can compare to doing something 100% by yourself without a lab report to guide you.
That makes sense. All right, so now it's time for the wildcard question. This is going to be the fun question in every episode. So your fun question is, as an aerospace engineering major, what's your favorite NASA mission of all time?
Oh, this is the best one. So I'm tempted to say Orion because I've worked on it, but my favorite NASA mission of all time is probably the Skylab missions from the 70s were really cool. If you go to the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., you can actually go in the Skylab, and it was probably the first human space station. I want to say it was the first. There was a Russian one, and I can't remember if it was before or after. But the Skylab mission was basically like the International Space Station, but much smaller. It was really genuinely the shape of a tin can. And thinking about how the astronauts like that lived in such a tiny tin can and they just had to trust it because it had never been done before. It was really crazy to me.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how well would you say your degree has fulfilled your intellectual curiosity?
Oh, I would say probably a 9 to 9.5. There were some times where I wish we would go more in depth on topics, especially on space topics, because the way that the degree was when I completed it, it had a big focus on aircraft, but not really on spacecraft. So it didn't quite satisfy that one itch in my intellectual curiosity, but I learned more than I ever thought there was to know, which is really cool.
Shifting over from the degree itself to like your career goals, what are your career goals, both short and long term?
I would say my short-term career goals are to have hardware I worked on in space. That might manifest itself pretty quickly with the Artemis 2 mission, but I would say the long-term career goals would be to have something that I designed in space. So right now I was making small fixes to existing hardware for previous missions, and that was really cool, but I want to have my own original concepts in the universe, and hopefully they will be applied for research topics or for like human spaceflight, like Orion or the lunar lander, if not some telescope.
What jobs / internship experience did you get both during your degree and like right now? Like what are you doing job-wise?
I had 2 internships, both with Lockheed Martin, but both were doing radically different things. So one of my internships was systems engineering interns. That was after my sophomore year, and I was working on systems engineering with feature optimization. It was a lot of MATLAB, and it was really, really cool, and running computer simulations, which is something that I was really fond of, and I think it was really cool because it was a lot like solving little puzzles. And then the other job that I got was working on mechanisms and pyrotechnics for Orion's capsule, which is really cool, but the work I got to do as an intern was a lot less hands-on, but basically anything that needed to break apart or any bolts that needed to separate or any lanyards or connector clips on the capsule. But a lot of my work was a little bit less hands-on because it was such higher stakes, because it was actual physical stuff, not code that could be changed. So I was editing drawings, updating documents and stuff, kind of more what you would think of for intern work. But the cool thing about that job is that I did get to keep it and work remote throughout my senior year, which is something that I was proud of.
Okay, final question. On a scale from 1 to 10, how well would you say that your degree has prepared you for your career?
I would probably say, once again, like a 9 to a 9.5. There are some skills that I got to the workplace, and I was like, kind of like, huh? Like what does that mean? But there are also some things where there are just some things that you can't teach, and that it goes back to like every company does things differently, and every industry does things differently. So you can't really learn something in an educational institute. But then again, there are some things like Rutgers didn't have a course on GD&T, which is a big skill that you need to learn if you're going into mechanical drafting like myself. So that is something that I wish they had prepared me for, but that was something I could also easily learn just by watching YouTube videos. So they gave me a very good foundation, and I also will say that my degree has prepared me on how to think about engineering problems. So like a lot of my professors were professionals in the industry. I had a professor that worked at Collins, I had a professor that used to work at SpaceX, and they're all very good at giving you the types of problems that you will see in real life. So what Rutgers coursework lacked, the actual professors and experiences made up. And it's, I would say probably about a 9 or a 9.5.
That's the last question. So I don't know, do you have anything you want to plug?
Rutgers RPL is launching our 2-stage rocket in the Spaceport America Cup this next week. So today is June 13th. And so around this time, I guess June 20th, we're going to launch our 2-stage rocket to about 30,000 feet in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And I hope that Sid can link a video to it in the description. But be sure to team up and go RPL.
That's awesome. I definitely will leave a link in the description because who doesn't love watching a rocket get launched? All right, well, thank you so much, Alexa. I hope that this interview is helpful to anyone out there who's curious about aerospace engineering. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave it a like. Comment any majors you want me to investigate. And if you're interested in appearing on this show, also feel free to comment. And yeah, hope you have a great day. Peace.